You're watching Welcome to the AfAM House, which is the signature podcast for the Afro-American Cultural Center here at Yale. Today, I'm going to be talking about my first year experience here at Yale, specifically my first semester experience. And with this being the last week of classes, I feel like this is the perfect time for me to record this episode. I have so many things to say, like so many insights to share. And yeah, I'm just excited to start this episode. Um, just a disclaimer, since I have so many things to say, I am going to be looking down at my phone a little bit just to stay organized. And I've also organized my ideas into the good, the bad, and the ugly, just so I can paint a very clear and authentic picture of my first year experience. So, yeah, let's get started. Um, let's start off with the good. Um, Move in was honestly such a peaceful experience. I think Yale invests so much time and energy in making sure that first years don't have their first impression of Yale being something that's anxiety inducing. And moving in, it was just so easy. Like I came in, they took all the boxes out of my trunk. They took all my bags. When I say they, I mean like the frocos and volunteers or staffers, I guess you could say. Um, and they brought my bags to my room for me. And yeah, that laborious process of having to go back and forth from my car was not something that I had to experience because of the frocos and the volunteers that helped carry my boxes to my room. And unpacking and organizing everything was a little bit stressful, but I feel like that comes with moving in. And honestly, like it was good because I had like support from my family. So yeah, the move-in process was pretty good. And as soon as my family left, I remember like just talking to my friends about my move-in experience, especially since a lot of my friends haven't moved in at the time. And I was like, this is good. Like this is a good first impression. And yeah, I feel like in the beginning of the school year, one thing that I did do a lot was talk to my friends back at home. I feel like they were keeping me very grounded during that time. And I feel like, especially in the limbo between move in day and the orientation programs that Yale offers, talking to my friends it just made me feel a little bit less lonely. And yeah, um, the next thing I want to talk about is how Yale invests so much into making sure that like your first weeks at Yale are not like lonely, and they invested so much in like creating that support system for you and making sure that you have friendships from the beginning. And they make sure that you have friendships that are outside of your classes as well. Um, One way that they do that is through your FROCO groups. FROCOs are first year counselors at Yale. They're the seniors that help first years just like get acclimated. They give advice. They have meetings with you weekly in the first like month of the school year just to make sure that you're on track. You know what's going on with things like course registration and things of that nature. Um, so they have those. They also have peer liaisons, which are similar to FROCOs, but they are affiliated with the cultural centers here at Yale, like the Afro-American Cultural Center. Um, yeah. Um, and they also have the orientation programs here at Yale. The orientation programs, I think they're one of the best things that they have here at Yale. They're essentially like summer camps when you first come here, and a lot of people do the orientation programs like cultural connections, but I personally did launch because when I came to Yale, I wanted to try something a little bit new and a little bit different than what I was usually doing back at home. The launch orientation program was focused more on like entrepreneurship and like things of that nature. And especially in the beginning of the school year when I thought my major was going to be ethics, politics, and economics, um, I thought that like maybe I should learn a little bit more about business and be surrounded by business minded people. And also, launch was about creativity as well. And I do want to be a more creative person, which is why I chose that program. But I do know a lot of the people of color and especially the black people at Yale did cultural connections. And there are times where I kind of wish I did because cultural connections did seem so fun. But launch was genuinely like one of the best things that I did here. We went to Six Flags, we went to the beach, and like we heard from like a whole bunch of different entrepreneurs that were working in fields like fashion, AI. It was really cool. And I also met one of my closest friends here at Yale through launch. I like ever since we met at launch, we've literally been like this every single day. Like we're literally together. Um, so yeah, I think one thing that I was a little bit scared about when I came to Yale was making friends, and I think that launch kind of helped me form one of my first friendships at Yale. And also, I remember when it was like over the summer and I was like listening to first year advice and things of that nature. I kept hearing like a similar narrative, like the friends that you make your first month or your first week of school will not last until the end of semester. And that is not something that I personally experienced. I feel like the friends that I made in the beginning of the school year are the friends that I'm still really close to right now, especially because like we have similar interests and we met in an environment like launch. And if you meet people in like other orientation programs like cultural connections, you can bond over things like culture. So I think that program at Yale, or the orientation programs at Yale, are very unique in the way that they like cultivate that the way that they cultivate friendships in the beginning of the school year for first years. um Another way that I feel like I've also made friends here at Yale is through my Yoruba class. At Yale, everybody has to take a language, but I think something that makes Yale very special is the types of languages that they offer. We have Yoruba, we have Swahili, and we have a lot of indigenous African languages, which I feel like a lot of kids within the African diaspora aren't necessarily being taught within their homes. So taking classes like Yoruba gave me the experience to like connect with people who have very similar lived experiences to me as members of the African diaspora and members of the Yoruba diaspora specifically. And I just love my Yoruba class. Um, language classes at Yale meet every single day. So when you take classes that are language classes that are a part of like your culture, you get to interact with people who have like very similar experiences to you daily. And I do think that it helps like cultivate friendships very easily. Like me and my Yoruba class, we have lunch together every single day. We hang out outside of class. And yeah, I think that was one of the best decisions that I made at Yale so far, taking Yoruba and going down that track for sure. Um, yeah. Um, Also, I feel like for me personally, a lot of the time when I'm at Yale, I don't feel like I'm going to a PWI because I am being able to be surrounded by people who have similar cultures to me. And it's very easy to make friends here that are black. I feel like the black community here is very, very, very close knit. I think I know most of the black first years here, and I have had at least one conversation with them, and they're all very nice people, which is something that I'm very thankful for. And yeah. Um so next I'm going to be talking about the bad. um I think when you come to college, there's just an adjustment period, and I definitely had to adjust. Um I think the first thing in my eyes that kind of went wrong is course registration. At Yale, for some of the classes, you have to apply to them. And I knew that coming in, but I didn't realize that like some of them were truly competitive to get into. And like some of the classes I did not get in my first round, and I was so stressed. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? My first semester is going to be terrible. But honestly, it all worked out. Um, Thank God for ad drop period at Yale, because eventually I got all the classes that I needed. And by the end of the semester, like honestly, I feel like all the classes that I took this semester, they taught me something. Even if they were horrible classes, well, maybe let me not say horrible. Even if they were classes that were not a great fit for me personally, I feel like I took away a lesson from it, even though a part of me wishes I did not take that class, which also ties into the ugly. I feel like this year I did have quite a bit of academic crash outs. Um, I think when you come to Yale, you you know that you're in this environment where there's insurmountable academic opportunity, but it also comes with insurmountable academic pressure. And I feel like particularly with courses like Econ 115, where like there was 550 people in the class about, and it was a type of like lecture style that I was not yet familiar with. It was kind of stressful for me to adjust, and I took my first midterm and I did not get a good grade. And then I took my second midterm and then I didn't get a really good grade. And I kind of felt really disappointed. And I remember calling my friend one day and we were talking and she was asking me how things were going. And at first I was laughing and those laughs soon turned into tears because I realized that I was in deep trouble. But I think when you're at Yale, it's easy to feel very trapped into the Yale bubble and like you're so caught up in grades and it's just like you feel like one class will genuinely ruin your life. But after like talking to my friends back at home, I feel like I was a little bit more grounded and I realized that things are actually going to be okay. And yeah, I feel like reaching out is something that I also learned this semester is very important. Another thing that I experienced a lot this year that kind of like rocked my world a little bit is all the club rejections. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, I applied to, actually don't even remember how many clubs I applied to, but I just remember like the first rejection, I was like, okay. The second rejection, I was like, okay. And then the third rejection, I was like, okay, like, I don't know if I have a place where I feel like I'm going to thrive on this campus. And especially coming from a high school where it's like I was doing everything at a very high level. I felt like I had a place at my high school where I was thriving and if not even thriving but being one of the best. It was a very humbling experience to come to Yale where like everybody's the best and you can't like there's not enough room for everybody to be in one certain space. So they have to cut people out of the club for funding reasons and things like that. So I think I don't know. For me, it was just a little bit humbling, also a little bit stressful, but ultimately, I did end up finding spaces and clubs that I think are more suited for me, even though they aren't the clubs that I envisioned myself doing when I was like coming out of high school and coming straight into Yale. I feel like they're serving to the passions that I never really got to explore before, and I've always wanted to explore. For example, one club that I'm doing here at Yale is called Fly. It's fashion and lifestyle at Yale. And I remember when I was younger, I used to always want to be a model. I would be watching America's Next Top Model and just wish I could be just like Tyra Banks. And now, in a way, I am just like Tyra Banks. And I'm able to do fashion shows. And actually, on the last day of classes, December 5th, we do have a fashion show coming up. And I get to experience that thing that I've always wanted to do when I was younger. I also did hair and makeup for the Dramat, and I just love hair and makeup. It's fun, and I feel like that's not something I envisioned myself doing when I came to Yale. Um, I thought I would be doing more of the traditional clubs like Model UN and debate, but I think something that Yale made me realize is that like I came into Yale with kind of the wrong approach. I feel like in a way I viewed coming to Yale as a continuation of what I was doing in high school. I felt like what I was doing in high school, it worked. It's what got me into Yale. But at Yale, it's just like such a different experience. And I feel like my time here, I don't want it to be a continuation of the incessant academic drive that I was doing in high school, but more so like an academic exploration of like who I am. I want to actually like learn about things that I'm passionate about here and take classes that interest me, which is something that I'm already like applying towards next semester because I'm probably going to change my major. After taking classes like Econ 115 and realizing like those are not the classes for me, I realized that maybe I should try something that I'm more passionate about. Um, and it doesn't always have to be like a complete 180, but like I don't know. For example, instead of doing ethics, politics, and economics, I'm looking more towards doing political science and African studies and ethnicity, race, and migration as possible majors and double majors. And I feel like kind of breaking myself out of this bubble that kind of pigeonholed me in the past with high school and even the beginning of this semester is something that I'm grateful I did early, and I realized that like I don't have to suffer in classes that are not for me, in classes that I feel like are not working towards my passions. Um, and um, I feel like the way that I realized this was through reaching out. But after like reaching out to my econ professor, for example, he is such a helpful person. Like I I emailed him and I was like, I feel really discouraged. I've been studying a lot and I feel like I'm not seeing results in my grades. And he was reaffirming me that like I'm doing okay. This is my first microeconomics class, this is my first lecture style class with 500 plus people. And that even though it doesn't feel like I'm improving, I am. And I feel like that kind of gave me the spark that I needed to like kind of work even harder for finals and things like that. And like another person that I reached out was an alumni at Yale. She went to Yale for undergrad and she also went to Yale for law school. And I was just asking her about advice because she also took econ in the past. And she said that like she used her resources here. She used the credit fail option. She used like she got grades that she wasn't necessarily the most happy with, but she was still okay. She still got into the law school that she wanted to. So I feel like by talking to people at Yale, I was reaffirmed that like there's so many pathways to succeed at this institution. Like Yale is really a land of opportunity, and those opportunities don't have to be the traditional opportunities that I've been experiencing and I've heard about in the past. Like they could be the more creative ones that I've always wanted to do, like with what I'm doing with Fly or what I've been doing with the Dramat, or even what I'm doing right now with the podcast here at Yale, which is something a little bit more creative and I haven't done in the past. That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed learning about my first year experience. Give me grace. This is my first episode here on the podcast, but I'm so excited to do more episodes and talk more about things that are related to the Black diaspora here at Yale. And hopefully in the future, I'll do an update episode about my first year experience. So stay tuned.